Cool. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Leroy McKenzie Jr., and it's the third Monday. So it's the brand new development series brought to you by Black Professional Men and J&F Enterprises. And we have got a great podcast for you this evening. We're going to be talking all things publishing, writing this evening, because as you all may or may not know, coming up this August, Black Professional Men is having the Black Literary Expo right here in Baltimore. So if you're anywhere in the DMV area on August the 10th, you want to be there from 11 to 4 p.m. We're going to be right downtown at the War Memorial Building, and we have got just a great day planned for everyone. It's going to be a day of community. It's going to be a day of fun. It's going to be a day of music, food. You're going to be able to get and meet and greet some great literary authors right here in the Baltimore area. If you are a vendor, we still have some space available for small business owners, as well as if you are an author looking to gain some exposure for your book that you have written, or even the book that you have coming out that will be out by August. You certainly want to be there, because this is one of those be in the room events that you don't want to miss. That's the Black Professional Men Black Literary Expo. All of the information will be, you can go to the website blackprofessionalmen.org. You can go on there and register. You can also go on and check out all of the great things that Black Professional Men are doing here and around the city of Baltimore, because as you all know, our mission, our purpose is to secure the future of the African American male, and that's what we're all about. That's what we're doing. And one of the things that we're doing is having a literary expo. We want to show you that it's not a bad thing to be able to read, to be able to write, and to be able to be an author. So we want to focus on literacy. We want to make it cool to be literate again. So that's what we're going to be doing in August. And tonight, I have my special guest is one of the authors that is going to be at the expo, and y'all in for a treat. I just want to let y'all know, he's not going to tell y'all about the book. Y'all gonna have to get it for yourself, because he is an author, he is a writer, but not just an author and a writer, but he has something that I think is very special in his book, and we're gonna get into all of that tonight. We're gonna talk a little bit about it, the writing process, his kind of like his thing that he does to be able to create and be who he is. So it's none other than Mr. Theodore Langston Crawford. Man, I ain't never told you this, but I love your middle name. That Langston, Langston, that name right there, bro. I'm like, Theodore Langston Hughes. Crawford, and I love that. So I'm gonna let you start off by just telling the folks just a little bit about you, your background, and everything like that, and
Sure.
then we'll start the conversation, as I call it. We'll start to talk about writing.
Sure.
Like
Sure.
that.
I really appreciate it. Well, first of all, I can't really take much credit for it. Let me just say that that name was given to me by my father. My father was actually a huge Langston Hughes fan, so that name was given to me at birth. So I'm just saying that because I don't want people thinking, well, who does he think he is?
Right.
Taking the name, calling himself Langston.
Right?
When did he actually? No, listen, that was my birth name, so I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Leroy. I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm a huge fan of yours, so thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this. I like what you're doing, and I just stress to everybody, just be a part of what Leroy McKenzie got going on, because it is indeed something special. He only touched on a little bit of it, and he doesn't want to toot his own horn, but believe me, it's some great things that he's working on, and you definitely want to be a part of. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about the expo and just being a part of it. this would be my first time being there, but from what I've been hearing about it, in terms of the attendance, in terms of the excitement and the energy, I'm really excited to be a part of it, and just being able to talk to people more about literacy awareness. And one of the things that's exciting to me is being able to talk to parents and encouraging the parents to bring your children.
Yeah.
Bring your children.
Yes.
You know, let's at a very early age start that concept of reading at a very early age, because what that does is it engages them and it builds a sense of curiosity, and it leads to a lot of other things where you can't help but see scholastically the impact of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just want to stress that. So thank you again for the opportunity, Leroy.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. And you know, I'm a big fan. You're not just a friend, but I'm a fan of Theodore Crawford and just his writings and everything like that. So it's actually, you know, it's my pleasure to have you on here because I want people to grab this book that we're going to be talking about in a minute, because I promise you, once y'all pick it up and start reading, you will not be able to put it down, because it is, you know, it is one of those books that will capture you from the first moment on. But I want you to start off by talking a little bit about how you got into writing and what made you want to, you know, start being a writer.
Sure. As I mentioned before, early on, I was just a kid who just was very imaginative and would write plays. Like, we literally had, when I was in my neighborhood, I grew up in South Baltimore, Cherry Hill.
Okay.
And on my street where there was a bunch of kids, we literally had plays. Like, I actually wrote scripts.
Oh, okay.
And one of them involved the time machine. And we got this crazy idea to get this huge cardboard box. And I wrote out script, and I wrote out everything, and I wrote out the characters, and I handed it out to everybody. We rehearsed. It was just a crazy fun time. And it started from there. And unfortunately, at that age, going into writing in terms of a career, I wasn't really familiar with or exposed to a lot. So the only profession that I knew of during that time was to be like maybe an editor or working for like a newspaper or something like that. And that just really didn't interest me. Okay. So as I got older, I started doing spoken word poetry. I began to perform in the Baltimore circuit. For those who are from Baltimore, may be familiar with poetology. During the mid-90s, they were very popular. It was a group of several up-and-coming poets who would just travel to different circuits, and they would just perform. So wherever they were, I would be a part of it. We would go to Randallstown, to the Five Seasons downtown, Randallstown. I can't think of the name of the spot, but just different places. And I started performing poetry. And as I did it, I just kind of had this yearning to want to do something a little bit more. I wanted to grow more. So I decided, let me try this and push it. And I came up with these concepts, these characters, and that's where the novel came. So I decided, if I'm going to do this, let me commit to it. So I used to work, and I would drive every single day from Linthicum to Baltimore, Barnes & Noble's at Price Street, and I would write from 6 to 11 every single day, straight, for hours at that one same table, and I would just write it out. I would write. And it developed. Now, over time, the storyline may have changed a little bit. The characters began to develop, but it got to the point to where the actual characters became so real to me that they were just writing themselves. Right. They were writing themselves. So to me, it wasn't really me writing a novel or a story. It was just really, everything was kind of just playing out. So as I began to develop and begin to understand, I had to understand and learn what it meant to be a good writer, because I didn't know. So I joined the Baltimore Writers Guild because I needed to understand, well, if I'm going to do this, what does it mean to be a good writer? So I wanted to be affiliated with other writers to learn about the industry, what it meant to be a good writer, how to get published, how to get an agent, how to market, all those things. So I did that. And as I did that, I became more and more familiar with what it meant to actually be a good writer. And still, I was very raw. Like the novel itself went through several different variations and revisions of constant updates here and there to where we are right now. So there's a lot of things in between there that I'm leaving out. So I'm giving a very short version of it, but that's kind of a very wide overview of how I got to this point.
Okay. Now, and we'll talk a little bit about the writing process.
Sure.
But when did you realize that, hey, this writing thing is something? I know you talked about writing the scripts as a little boy and everything like that. But when was it that you said, when you started to think in terms of, wow, I think I really got something here, as far as the novel? Because like you said, you hadn't written anything before, and to go from never writing before to now all of a sudden writing a fiction book. It wasn't like you were writing nonfiction, which you can kind of, you have a kind of an idea that you're developing as far as content and stuff like that. But this fiction is creating, creating these characters that just come from anywhere. Now, your book, which the title of it is A Time to Remember. Talk about, I guess, how that came about, where you got the idea to write this kind of book from.
Oh man, Leroy, it's crazy. Let me tell you something. When I first started this, the concept was basically a sort of like a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon type of direction. That's where it started from. So basically the idea of these characters who were jumping out of trees and fighting, flying all over the place, that's where it started from. And as the characters developed, it went into a totally different direction. Now, to answer your question in terms of when did I feel that, one of the first things that I did was, before I shared it with anybody, I got a copy written. Because I felt like, okay, if I'm going to be serious about this, eventually I got to share this with somebody. Now, as I share this with people's either going to say, hey, this is pretty good, or they're going to say, this is crap.
Right.
Don't share this with nobody. Just get rid of it. But in order for me to get to that point, I had to get a copy written. So I got a copy written, and then once I got a copy written, I said, okay, you know what? Now it's time. Now it's time for me to find out, because up to this point, it's only been just me. Me believing in it, me feeling like, okay, this has a possibility. So I did allow, and here's another thing, and we may talk about this later, but you can always have your friends and your family read what you have.
Right.
But here's the thing, and people need to understand this. Your friends and your family, they want to see you succeed.
Right. Usually. Most friends and family.
Right, most of the time. So you share this with them, what do you think they're going to say? Oh, this is great. This is the greatest thing I've ever read. Yeah. This is so I didn't want that. I didn't want that. So I got a copy written, and by me being affiliated with the Writers Guild, I was able to connect with certain people, and one of them was another writer, another young guy like myself, and he read it, and he looked at me, he said, man, he's like, I love the way you write. He's like, I actually did this. He said, this is actually pretty good. Keep in mind, the version was extremely, I want to say raw, but in a very early version. Very early version of it. So back then, he was telling me, he was like, man, this is really something else. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I need to really carry this through. So I continue to work on it, trying to find ways where I can make sure that it's well written. Keep in mind, this is for me. I can't speak, like, everybody that writes has a different approach or process, but
absolutely,
I don't really read other people's novels. What I do read is either historical writing, such as maybe like Dr. Cornel West or Tabby Smiley, things of that nature. But in terms of fiction, especially in my genre, I don't read. And the reason why I don't read is because I don't want subconsciously in a very indirect way for anything to come into my creative space.
Right.
So that's the reason why I don't. So if I'm not reading, how do I know that this is good compared to what other people have?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a challenge that I had. So I had to get a copy written. And then once I let one, maybe two people read it, and I got that feedback, which was, hey, this is actually pretty good. It kind of went on from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, and that's great. And like you said, one key thing that you said is, I think every author writer has to find their own process.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because for each of us, there is it's a different process for us to get to where it is, from what I say is what is in our head to actually what is on paper, because we're the only ones that can see that.
Absolutely.
And know what it is. And I like the fact that you said you don't want to compare what you write to what others has already written, or don't want to have that influence, because I think it can seep in, sometimes, because now I think, I think for most writers, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, there's most stuff that hasn't been written about, and so it's going to be a different dynamic to it and everything like that. But what I also say, just like I tell entrepreneurs, is nobody can tell your story the way that you can tell it. You may say, you all may have the same overarching topic that you're talking about, but the way you see it is not going to be the way that another author that writes suspense thriller, which is what the genre that you're in, is going to see it and write it. And that's that is the thing that I enjoy about your writing, is that I can't think of another book, another movie that had the dynamics that your book has. Even though it has the stories within the stories that we talked about, it doesn't have the dynamics that yours has. And I'm like, man, that was something fresh, something new. And I know you did that intentionally, because it was how like you said, you weren't looking to have the outside influences that you would have from the other writers. So I think that's great. I want you to talk about a little bit. I know you talked a little bit about the writing process, but when you go into once your manuscript, you got your manuscript done, and you've developed your characters and those kind of things. What went into you designing the cover of your book, A Time to Remember? And I want people to see it, so I'm gonna hold it up right here. I'm gonna hold this up right here.
All right, not to make it seem like there is a story with every single one of these, because it really isn't. But I'll give you the short version. So this is actually the second cover that I had.
Okay.
The first cover was completely, totally different. And what it was the storyline is based on two main characters who are brothers, and it was split down the middle. I had a graphic designer kind of just listened to me and kind of gave me some different options, and we went with one.
Okay.
And the feedback that I was getting was, it's okay. And there was one particular lady who worked in a bookstore, and she was a huge fan of the book. She was like, man, she was like, this is really great. She was like, the book cover is, She said, Theo, she said, why don't you consider putting yourself on the book cover? I said, I'm not doing that. I said, I'm not doing that. She was like, what? I said, I don't want anything to take away from the actual storyline. I just, I don't want to do that. She said, okay. She said, maybe you want to think about it. And the feedback that I kept getting was, I like the book. I really do. This is really something different, but I was thrown off by the book cover because it just didn't seem like it fit. So then after a while, I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I need to humble myself a little bit. And then I said, okay, you know what? Let me give it a shot and see how it goes. So I gave it a shot, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. And if it don't, we're gonna go back to the original cover. But if not, and this is what we came up with. That's what we came up with.
Now, for the folks that aren't familiar with the book, A Time to
Sure.
Remember, give a little synopsis just about what the book
Yeah.
is about, so that they can know a little bit about
Yeah.
it.
A Time to Remember is a high drama mystery suspense novel, and it depicts two main characters who are brothers, who are biological brothers. However, they're both adopted. They don't know of each other's existence at all. And it's not until their biological father is murdered. Now, one brother is raised here in Baltimore by a family. The other one is taken by a wealthy Asian family down in Beijing. So all his entire life, he's raised over there in Beijing. So at the funeral, that's where they learn of each other's existence, and that's when they meet each other. So their families connect, they develop a friendship. However, as they look more into what happened with their father's murder, that's when they realize something is going on. That's when they realize there's a cover up. There's a government cover up that's directly responsible for the death and the murder of their father. When that happens, that's when things start to really develop, because now they're beginning to ask questions. Now they're going to the police. Strange things are starting to happen. And it leads to a lot of different unexpected situations and a very shocking, surprising ending. It's very, you kind of touched on it a little bit, Leroy. It's very, very unexpected, but it's unexpected from a very authentic place. So it's unexpected with the goal of not being unexpected. It's unexpected with the goal of being surreal and authentic, because what happens is exactly what's supposed to happen, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely, 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 and I'm telling y'all,
Does that make
this,
sense?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and folks are going to have to read this book to understand. It's one of those books that keeps you from the beginning to the end, because there are, a lot of books that that people have, or that they get, and even movies that they have, that they get, that capture you from the beginning all the way to the end, because it has that much that much intrigue to it, and it keeps your interest, it keeps you on on the edge of your seat, where you're looking to read that next page, because you want to find out what's going to happen next, like you mentioned, with the different things that the cover up, once the cover up starts to reveal itself,
Yep.
how that unfolds and everything, and then the twist and turn that the novel takes you through. And here's the thing too, just a little bit about the book. Talk about, because can you just give them the names of the characters, because I think you did something that was really great, and that I talk about. You had a story within a story, and you kind of deal with different issues, which I really thought was great. But just
Yeah.
talk about how you were able to develop each of the individual characters, because you have the two main characters that you mentioned, and I'll let you
Sure.
give their names. But then the kind of outer outer characters that you shaped around them, which I thought was really great.
Yeah. 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 Well, the two main characters are the two brothers I mentioned, Van and James. Van being the brother raised in Beijing, and James being raised here in Baltimore. So James already has a family here, and Van has his own family. So what's happening is you're basically combining not just them two, but you're combining two different cultures, and also the people who are directly connected with them.
Right.
Um, so they have their own voice, they have their own opinion, they have their own mentality, the way they go about things, their own energy. One of James's one of the main characters, not primary characters, but one of the main characters, has a bout with a mental illness, and I thought that was important, because I don't want to give too much away, but
Right.
mental illness is has become sort of like a taboo thing within our community, especially within the African American community. Taboo meaning we see it, we know there's something there, but we don't want to own up to it. We kind of want to just brush it under the rug.
Yeah.
But in a while, our families are being impacted, you know, whether it's depression, bipolar, even schizophrenia, I mean, just different things. So I thought it was important because one of the characters, which on the outside, you would never, ever think that this person has this challenge because they're attractive, they're successful, and they're smart, but there's something that's going on the inside that gets revealed eventually. So I really wanted to kind of touch on that because I feel like it's something that is affecting our community. Well, it's affecting everybody, a lot of people's, not just in our communities, but throughout the entire country, all societies.
Right.
But we're not doing enough. There's resources out there, but we're kind of just brushing it under the rug. But while you're doing that, families are being messed up.
Yeah.
You know, children are being messed up because people don't want to get help. So there's some aspects of the story that has different components.
Right.
And they begin to reshape and kind of take on its own course. But in the end, it all comes together.
Absolutely. And and like you said, the different messages that you touch on, because that's not the only message that you touch on in here. There's several others, but we ain't gonna talk about those because we want people to get the book to be able to read it and find out for themselves about those things. But it is something you address issues that I think affect the community, which I think is really great as well that we don't talk about. You know. It's a couple of issues in there outside of, like you said, outside of the mental health issues. There's some other issues that our communities need to deal with, and we don't deal with. But you address them in a form like this, in a book form like this, which I think is really another great way, you know, for people to be able to read, and it can start a dialogue for people to be able to address these kinds of issues and to gain a better understanding of them. So I think that's great.
When you're reading a novel, man, I'm a very I can be a very impatient reader, and I think a lot of people are the same way. So when you get to the point to where you're turning the pages and you're kind of just, okay, where's this going, and you know, I already know what's going to happen, or you're not really into it. It's almost like going to the movies. You pay your money, you buy your movie ticket, you're sitting down in a movie theater, and for the next 2 hours or 2.5 hours, you don't think about nothing. if it's a good movie, If it's a good movie, If it's a good movie, you're not thinking about nothing. You're not thinking about your finances. You're not thinking about your house. You're not thinking about your job. You're sitting down in that movie theater and you're into that world. And I feel as though that writing, this type of reading and writing should be the exact same thing.
Absolutely.
Whereas, or you're just swept away. You're to the point to where all you want to do is just finish because you're connected with the characters and you're connected with the storyline. That's the place that I really, really try to tap into as a writer.
Right. Now, how much research did you have to do to do the writing for this book, for those that may be aspiring writers or even just writers already?
Lots. Because I'm dealing with so many different dynamic characters. You got one has a culture from Beijing. I mean, I'm from Baltimore, so I'm pretty familiar with the culture of Baltimore, but there's so many aspects outside of just location. I mean, with the mental illness that we talked about, a lot of research. And I would encourage any writer, any subject matter that you're touching on as an author that's affecting your characters, do your research. Do as much research as you possibly can, because it'll make it so much easier for you, and it becomes very, very genuine at the same time and believable. So a lot of research, man. Years of research. I've had people ask me, where did you, what did you do? I just used my resources, and I took a lot of time doing my research.
Yeah. And that's important for a writer, whether you're fiction or nonfiction. But when
Absolutely.
you're creating something like you did, like you really did. You talked about the one character being from Beijing, so you had to figure out that culture. You
Yep.
know, like you said, have you ever been? The question is, have you ever been to Beijing? All of those things. So if you're someone who's never been to Beijing, how do you create this character that comes from there, other than having to do the research to find out about the culture, to find out about
Yeah.
the different dialect, because you even did that with the dialect from there, as well as more so with the dialect here in Baltimore.
Yep.
I thought that's one of the keys to writing as well. When you're writing something like this, when you're writing when you're writing a fiction book, and you have to hone in on the area that a particular character is either from, or is visiting, or something like that, because there's certain things that you do have to kind of know, and like you said, in order to be able to be authentic. you know
Yeah. One of the characters, not a main character, but another
hmm
character was from Jamaica.
hmm
So
hmm right,
I had to really take it upon myself to really research that culture.
right, right.
And when I first started writing the novel, that I had a hard time with that
mm,
because I wasn't familiar. Like all I did was just write. So I'm
hmm
writing, and I didn't really take the time to do the research. And what
okay.
was happening was the image that I was putting out of my perception of the cultures was totally off.
hmm
Was totally off. So I had to go back after spending all this time doing my research, not rewriting the entire novel, but just kind of
hmm
going back and focus on making sure that the culture is consistent and it shows through the actual novel.
right, 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 right. Absolutely, absolutely. And that becomes, like you said, that becomes very important because if you're reading a fiction novel, and things don't match up as a reader, I think you can be,
Yep.
you can kind of be, I think you can kind of be thrown off, and everything like that. So
Yep.
I think that's great. So you've developed your characters, you've done your research, you've put the manuscript together, you got the manuscript kind of where you want it.
Yep.
Talk about going into the editing and you have the cover. Talk about going through and going into the editing process that you had to go through, or that you go through with writing the novel.
Okay. So let me say this. As a writer, this is very important. You can look at your novel until you're blue in the face. You can even get to the point to where you just know, like you know the back of your hand,
hmm
right? You will not be able to give it the eye that it needs for a thorough editing. You just can't. How do I know? Because I tried it. I tried it. This is me being young and full of wishful thinking and optimism. I can do this myself. I know what I want. And
hmm
no, no. So writers, among other things, take the time, invest the money, get it edited professionally. What you don't want is to have, and your novel can be great. The storyline
hmm
can be great. You can have some great creative concepts that no one has ever seen. However, when your readers are reading it and they start to see things in there, I'm not even talking about necessarily typos. It could
hmm
be grammar, it could
hmm
be inconsistencies. You know what's happening? You're selling yourself short because the reader is like, wow, this is what I paid my money for.
hmm
This is what I
hmm
paid my money for. Now they may continue to read, but as they read, they're having a hard time getting into it because now they've got to focus on the stuff that you missed
Right,
as a writer.
right.
You can't. I know a lot of people try to do it themselves. Take it upon yourself. Invest. Invest. I'm not saying mortgage a house or anything like that, but just take the time, invest some money if you believe in it. if you believe in it. Think of your novel as your baby, as your child. You want to nurture your child. You want to give your child the best education. You want to give your child the best opportunity to grow, the best schools, the best healthcare, all that. Invest in an editor for your manuscript.
Yeah, and I can't, and I don't think that can be reiterated enough. I think two of the most important people that you need on your team, as as a writer, as an author, one is a graphic designer to develop, because you got that book cover has got to be on point.
Yes.
Because if it's not on point, trust me, it's the first thing that people see. Whether it's in a bookstore, whether you're at an event as an author, where you have your books on your table, as a speaker, even as a speaker that has a book, you want to make sure that cover is, and trust me, you can tell the difference. I know you can tell the difference with somebody who may have just done the cover themselves or whatever, or just had a bad a graphic designer, and then someone who took the time and invested in a graphic designer and an editor. Same thing with the editing, because
absolutely.
The number two turn off for any reader is trying to read a novel or read a book, just period. I'm saying not just a novel, but reading a book, and the inconsistencies like you talked about, but then also the grammar. Those and this is the lesson that I learned. This is me personally. My third book that I had, I lied to you not, I had the font size of 10. And for anybody that's a writer knows that font size of a 10 is very small.
Yep.
It's very small. And when I was selling my books, and I had one of my friends who had it and that was supporting me, and was an older lady. And she said, Leroy, she said, I can't read this. She said, the font is too small. She said, I had to get a magnifying glass to read it. And it didn't dawn on me about because I was trying to, honestly, with that book, and I learned, I was trying to fit it into a certain number of pages, because I had written it before I'd actually typed it up and put it into the format and everything. So it wasn't like I was typing it in the format that it was supposed to be in. So I'm trying to fit it into, I think I was trying to get under 250 pages, So in order for me to do that, in order for me to do that, I had to, I was like, well, if I make the font smaller, then I can get it to the size that I wanted to get it to and everything like that, and it'll be fine. And she was the first one to say something, and then I had a couple other people talk about that font size, and I was like, oh my God. I was like,
Thank
what
God
have
for
I done?
her.
Yeah. I was like, oh man. I was like, that will never happen to me again. I said, if I gotta have more pages, I'll have more pages. I said, but that font size has gotta be correct. I said, because the least amount of distractions, and this is for all the writers out there, you want to have the least amount of distractions when your reader is reading through a book. And as an author, when you're going through that editing process, and this is something that Theo and I talk about, you as an author, you want to put yourself in that position as a reader, and you want to look at it from a reader's perspective. And if there are things that you see that don't either flow, or that the grammar, too much misspelled words, those are things that you have to pay attention to. And that's what your editor is there for.
Yep.
Because they should be able to catch those things to let you know as the writer. So don't get mad at the editor. Don't get mad if they come back to you and tell you, about switching this or changing that, or about the font size and all of those things. It's all a part of the process to make the book, like Theo said, you want it to be the best product that it should be, and you want it to be able to read smoothly for people that are going to be reading it, so that in the midst of any time that they read it, whether it's them sitting down for the whole day and reading a book, or each time that they pick up the book to read it, it's a consistent, smooth read for them, and it takes them. I like how you say it takes them out of the place of whatever may be going on for themselves, and it puts them right there in the middle of a fiction book where where they can see themselves as the different characters that are there, which is one of the things that you're great at, because I can actually see this book in my head. You're that descriptive of how you play out, how you created the scenes and everything like that. So it's one of those things that you, as a writer, you want to be able to do that. You want to put the person that's reading right in the middle. If you're a fiction writer, you want to put them right there in the story that you're telling, so that they can actually physically see. It's like reading your book should be like looking at a movie. That it should be that descriptive to people. So you want to make sure that, and if you're able to do that in the best way, trust me, I think people they'll love your book. They'll enjoy it. And even if it's a nonfiction book, the message that you're trying to convey in a nonfiction book, you want people to be able to see that and come away with it. And that's my next question for you. What do you want the reader to come away from by reading A Time to Remember? After they've read the book, what do you want to see them come away with?
Well, couple things. Number one, hopefully they were, engaged enough to where they're compelled to want to know what happened at the end, because there's a huge dynamic shift towards the very end, which left a lot of people wondering what happened. What happened? So I'm in the process of working on part two. Part two will be released. So that's one of the main things. I one of my favorite, when I was young, and I stress this, when I was young, one of my role models was Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Ben Carson.
Yeah. Now everybody
so
know why you said when I was young.
Okay, when I was young. Okay. So
I think he was everybody's though, because we did, because he was someone that we all did look up to, especially being from Baltimore and everything. You couldn't be from Baltimore as a black man and not really,
huge inspiration. But if you ever read Gifted Hands, one of the things that he talked about is when he was young, he had such a hard time in school. Him and his brother, he had anger issues. He had a hard time in school. His mother, single mom, raised him. And the thing that she did that changed everything for him and his brother was she made them go to the library every single day, and they had to read a book every single day. He said, and of course, in the very beginning, they was reluctant. He was like, no, they don't want to do that, but they had no choice.
Right.
But once they did that, that changed everything for them. Everything. Because what it did was it opened up so many other aspects of things that they weren't exposed to. So as you're reading, it makes you want to learn more and understand more. So me putting in these different cultures and aspects of things that's going on with these characters is not just but because I also want the reader to learn more about what's going on and realize there's more beyond what you may understand. But it's up to us to want to know what's out there. It's up to us to want to know. And if you live a life where you're just closed-minded to everything, you don't want to broaden your horizon, you don't want to see what else is out there, you don't want to travel, you don't want to know about how other cultures, if your whole mindset is, look, this is how I roll, this is how I do things, I've been this way all my life, I can't help it, shame on anybody, then let's see how that gets you. You know? So what I try to do is I try to get people to think beyond their scope of what they seem to know, which is why I have these different dynamics and different cultures in the novel. So hopefully by the time that they're done, number one, they're intrigued to the point to where they want to learn more and they want to know about what's happening at the very end. But also they come away feeling, wow, they've really grown in terms of wanting to understand more about what's out there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I want you to talk a little bit about the genre that you're in, and because you kind of talked to me a little bit about the importance of the genre that you're in, and
Right.
what you found out being in there. Talk a little bit about that, and being a black man in the genre that you're in.
Okay, so yeah, this it's a fast-paced mystery suspense novel. The challenge that we have in our community as African Americans is, look, wherever you are right now, on your cell phone, if you're on your laptop, go to Google. Go to Google, put in, type black, or no, I'm sorry, don't even put in black. Just type mystery suspense authors. Just type that, mystery suspense authors, and see what you come up with.
Mm.
You're going to get a wave of mystery suspense authors that looks nothing like me. And when I say me, I mean a man of color. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's a shame, and I don't know what happened,
Mm-hmm.
because in the mid '90s the trajectory was so promising because we had Omar Tyree, Terry
Mm-hmm.
McMillan. Walter Mosley is the only one that you're going to get when you type in mystery suspense novelist. Walter Mosley is the only one,
Mm-hmm.
and he comes like way down the line.
Right.
You had Elin
Right.
Harris, you had Toni Morrison,
Mm-hmm.
so many authors during the mid '90s, and it was like
Right.
an explosion. I have no idea what happened. I have
Mm-hmm.
no idea what happened. So to answer your question, I'm really hoping that, and there's some other, man, really good authors that's out there,
Right.
really
Right.
talented, really talented authors that are out there. So I'm hoping that as we attend these events, like you mentioned, the expo
Mm-hmm.
coming up in August, that we can change the trajectory once again back to where it was before.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important for us to be represented in across the board of genres. You know,
Sure.
like you said, I mean, because we should be able to write mystery suspense novels. We should be able to write children's books. We should be able to write the poetry, which we're both a part of. We should also be able to write the, I don't know what you would consider Terry McMillan's and those type of authors that just write drama. I don't know if that's their particular genre, that they're in, because there was, like you said, there was this explosion
Michael
of
Baisden.
black authors in the 90s and even into the 2000s, and there's been this dip, that has happened. And I think you would think that even now with technology being the way that it is, and the increase in technology, that would have assisted those those particular authors. But then also it's actually, and you can talk a little bit about this, and then I got a couple more questions before we get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
But if you notice, a lot of the brick and mortar bookstores are closing down a lot of their stores.
Yep.
So that's affecting. You talk about talk a little bit about how that's affecting authors, and even those authors from back in the 90s and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go into, I mean, there's still Barnes and Nobles, but if you
Mm-hmm.
go into one, just go into the African American literacy section. What you're going to find is, you're going to find, look, this is a crazy thing. You're going to find Toni Morrison.
Mm-hmm.
We all know the great writer Toni Morrison.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Beloved, Color Purple. You're going to find her novels in the same section as hardcore street sex.
Right.
Uh, uh,
The
uh, uh,
urban fiction, I think
yeah,
they call it.
you're gonna find her. I mean, Toni Morrison is as good as a writer as there is anybody. You're
Right.
gonna find her novels in that same area. So basically, they consider us. When I say us, I mean African Americans, people of
Mm-hmm.
color. That's what they consider us.
Yeah.
That genre,
Yeah.
that genre, they're gonna stick right in there, and that's
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that has
I
to
get
change.
upset. Yeah, that frustrates me. That when I go to, like you said, Barnes and Noble or even Books a Million,
Hmm.
even Walmart, and even when you go to the library, for those that have
Yep.
not been to the library, they just have an urban fiction section,
Yep.
and they put everything in
That's
there.
our
It's
section. Yeah.
right. It's like if we can't, they don't put the authors, like you said. Toni Morrison should be with. It shouldn't even be a distinction. It just should be
Yeah.
fiction, nonfiction, and then maybe if you have, like you said, suspense thriller. That's where all of those books. Because I even got mad because, and this was years ago when they used to put those little stickers on the books. African
Hmm.
American author. I don't know if you remember
I
seeing
remember.
those, but
Yeah.
they would put those on the book so that you knew it was a black author. Which I'm like,
Yeah.
why do you have to distinguish that on there?
Yeah.
That it was a black, that it's a black author. And then that, like I said, even now you go into the library and they have the urban fiction section and they have everything stuck in there.
Yeah.
And I thought it does, to me, that does a disservice to authors like you, like you said, authors like Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, Nikki Giovanni, all of
Yep.
those, Maya
You're gonna find
Angelou.
in that section. Yep.
Yeah, all of these great, Walter Mosley, like you talked about, all of these great writers that we have, even Omar Tyree, because it's not his really isn't urban, it's urban, I didn't say urban, but it's fiction,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know, it's great stories. The my man, and I gotta mention him, Travis Hunter,
Hmm.
Travis Hunter, Carl Weber. These are some great writers,
Absolutely.
not urban, great writers.
Yep.
They tell great stories, and I think that's one of the things that if you want to say one of those things that needs to be dispelled, like you said, that is one of those very things that needs to be dispelled, broken down, because there are some great writers that
Absolutely.
that black that happen to be black writers,
Yeah.
but their stories, your story that you have a time to remember, is one that is transferable to any body, any group or ethnic group
Yep. Thank you.
can read this story. And yes, you do write it from a black man's perspective because that's who you are,
Yeah.
but this story can be read by anyone, and I promise you that they will enjoy it because it's entertaining. And I told you this before, I'll just say it publicly, whatever, but it's a story that has all of the elements of a great story, and I'm going to keep saying it till we see it on the screen, of a great movie, because it has the intrigue, it has the antagonist, all of those drama filled things. It deals with messages, great messages that come with it. So we have to stop putting these labels on great writing.
Thank you.
you know
Thank.
they
Thank you.
really do, they really do have to stop doing that. So
And
and I
here's
let
the thing.
okay,
I just
go
want
ahead.
to say, Leroy.
uh
Look, if that's what you prefer to read, that street hardcore, that's fine.
right,
That's fine. We're not saying there's don't read it.
right, exactly,
That's
right.
fine. All we're saying is that there's different genres,
Mhm.
and everything should not be looped in together, because that's not what this fiction is.
Right.
Just as you mentioned, Toni Morrison and the other great writers, and so on and so on and so on. And that's all we're saying.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I mean, and as a reader, you should want to read different types of books.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, the greatest thing that books does for, I think, individuals, one, it increases your vocabulary, but at the
Oh,
same
absolutely.
time, it actually it exercises your mind to be able to think and to be able to just see things differently, like you talked
Hmm.
about. Because your book, you get to understand a little bit about Beijing, you know, a little bit about that, a little bit about that culture,
Right.
you know, and everything like that. And you even, like you said, for someone who's not from Baltimore, you get to you get to understand a little bit about the culture of Baltimore,
Yeah.
which I think is really great. So as a reader, you'll gain those things from reading different types of books,
Yep.
and everything. So that's great.
Absolutely.
So last couple of things for you. How can people connect with you? I want people to be able to connect with you, and then also once the book is available for re-release, which is going to come, which is coming out, how can they connect with you?
Sure. Facebook. You can contact me, Theodore L. Crawford on Facebook. The website is going to be Theodore.Crawford, TheodoreCrawford.com. Sorry, TheodoreCrawford.com. So as you mentioned, the pre-release we're going to be doing, we're actually looking to have it in print production pretty soon. So please be on the lookout for that. But yeah, you can contact me through either Facebook or you can contact me directly through the website.
Cool, absolutely. And the last thing, what advice would you have for an aspiring writer? That talk to that young Theodore that was starting out, getting ready to start writing. What advice would you give him?
A few things. Number one, it's very important that you surround yourself with people that's in the scope of where you're trying to go. So if you're trying to be a writer, you want to be a part of different groups. Like for me, it was a Baltimore Writers Guild. You need that because you need to understand how the industry works.
Absolutely.
Be a part of those groups, learn it, understand it, enrich yourself in so many different ways. Believe in yourself, but have a sense of humility. Understand that what you have may be special, but you want to make it as best as you possibly can in its very best version.
Absolutely. And understand it. And I think you touched on something really important about understanding that this is a business, and you should know the business side of it as well.
Oh, absolutely. That's huge.
It's huge. And it's not saying that you have to know everything. You don't have to know everything, but you should know the process, because I can't tell you how many times that the importance of it. And I'll talk about one of the lessons that I learned with my writing, or the writing process, and even dealing with printers. I'm sorry, dealing with printers when I was writing my first book, and I had Mr. Coates from Black Classic Press, which is a printing company that I do the printing through. He actually was someone that took me and showed me the printing process, so that I could understand how books go from giving them a raw manuscript, or giving them a file, to actually laying out the book, so that when you get it, and it looks like this. That doesn't just happen magically. There's a process.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because as a writer, you're just starting out. You're not thinking about that.
Right.
All you're thinking about is seeing it in its very best version, but you're not thinking about what happens transitioning from one to the next to the next to the next. So the business side of it, you need to learn and understand that. So yeah, that's a good point.
Absolutely. And last thing, talk about what you got coming up. I know you mentioned a little bit about about the books, but I know this is the first book. But talk about what you got going on next.
Yeah. So after this one, part 2 is going to be coming out. A Time to Remember part 2. The Battle of Battling. I know the title sounds kind of crazy, but it makes sense for A Time to Remember part 2. So hopefully, if you like part 1, you would enjoy part 2 even more, because part 2 is going to be even more exciting the way that it's coming off right now. Also, I'm going to be writing a novel called Cherry Hill. I'm from South Baltimore. I'm from the Cherry Hill community. So if you are familiar with the novel, is going to take place between 1984 and 1987.
Oh, wow.
If you're familiar with, for those of us who are old enough, remember the 80s TV show Wonder Years. Little boy Fred Savage, who kind of told a story from the 1960s, everything. Right. It was very similar to that. So cool. anyone from Baltimore knows, you may not be from Cherry Hill, but you know of Cherry Hill.
Absolutely.
You know of Cherry Hill. So that's going to be coming out as well. So I'm working on that. In terms of where I'm going to be, you mentioned the Black Professional Men.
Mm-hmm.
Expo coming up in August. I'm also going to be at the Baltimore Book Festival in November.
Yes.
Everybody's
Yes.
familiar with that. That's actually downtown Mount Vernon
Mm-hmm.
for the entire weekend. So excited about both of those events. But I
Absolutely.
stress, please come out. Parents, bring your children.
Yes.
Bring
Yes.
them. That's one of the most gratifying things about this is being able to meet people, but also being able to meet the parents, meet the parents, meet the kids. And a lot of times what I do is I meet the kids and I meet the parents. And if they buy the book, I'll take a picture with them. And a lot of times I put it on the website. But the best part is having them get the book and then them go on my website and then they tell me what they thought of the book.
Mm-hmm.
That right there means a lot to
Yeah.
me.
That's
That's a
gold.
lot.
That is
Yes,
gold right there, bro.
absolutely.
It's no better feeling than for someone to come up and tell you something that you put your blood, sweat, and tears into, that you brought to life,
Yep.
and for them to tell you that somebody else to tell you that it impacted them in whatever way it impacted them.
Because
You
look,
know?
man, us black folks, we honest.
Yeah,
So
right.
so you gotta be careful. You know what I mean? You gotta be careful. Like you want people to get it. Okay. So guess what? They're gonna you okay, so you want me to go to your website? Okay, look, I'm gonna go to your website, and if they think it's trash, they're gonna tell you they think it's trash. So you're absolutely
Absolutely.
right. But I
You are
love
right
that. I
about
love
that.
that about my people. So
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, absolutely, bro. I want to thank you. We're gonna kind of close out with this, but I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to to come and talk to us about the writing process, and everything like that, and your taking us through your journey into writing. And so that hopefully this will inspire another writer. They'll be able to see this and they'll be able to say, wow, I see a brother like Theodore Langston Crawford doing it, and I know that I can do it. So I appreciate you taking time out, and we want everybody to come on out to the Black Professional Men Black Literary Expo that's going to be on August the 10th. It's Saturday,
Yep.
August the 10th, from 11 to 4. Come on out. You can greet Mr. Theodore. You can actually talk to him. You can actually get a signed copy of his book at
Yep.
that event. He'll have those there ready for you. Take, like he mentioned, take pictures with you, and you can actually have a great conversation with him
Absolutely.
about that. And I think to me, I think that's the great thing about expos and festivals and everything like that, where you can actually meet an author one-on-one. You can actually talk to them about their particular projects or whatever and stuff like that, their books, and you can get that one-on-one that you wouldn't necessarily get if you just ordered it offline, online and everything like that. I think there's such you make more of a connection when you're able to see them face to face and talk to them about that.
We
So
need that, Leroy, man. We
yeah,
need that, man.
absolutely.
Let me tell you something, man. When I was in middle school, I never forget this. Montel Williams
Mm.
came to my school, because he's from Maryland. He's from
Oh, okay.
Baltimore.
Okay.
Came to my school, man. And at the time, he had just come out of the Naval Academy. His his talk show had just started. So he was
Oh,
beginning
okay.
to kind of like catch fire.
Mm.
But there's something special about being able to touch somebody,
Right.
to shake hands with someone, and for them to
Right.
say, "Hey, you have something. Like I
Mm.
believe in you." So
Right.
when I meet kids, man, I tell them, if you want to be a writer,
Mm-hmm.
do it.
Right.
Tell me your story. Like tell me, what is it about? What have you
Right.
done so far? How can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for that. And
Right.
sometimes that's all it takes for someone to feel confident to where they can be like, you know what? Wow, I can actually do this.
Right.
So I thank you, Leroy, for this opportunity. Um, as I mentioned before, from the very beginning of the segment, listen, everybody that's watching, you want to be a part of what Leroy is building because there's some exciting things that's going on. He's extremely humble, so he's not going to talk about what he's doing a whole lot, but trust me, you want to be a part of it. You want to be a part of it, and you want to maintain that connection with Leroy McKenzie because he's talented, he's wise, he's smart, and he's got some great things going on in Baltimore City. So I appreciate you having me on.
Bruh, I appreciate that, and like we said, it's all about It's about, and my theme this year is chase the impact. It's about impacting
I
people's
like that.
lives to, to be able to make them better. And the way that we do that through books. We do that through our conversations that we have with them and everything like that. Inspire, like you talked about, which I think is great. The campaign that you're doing, the literacy campaign that you're doing along with your book. It's about literacy. It's about our kids and getting them and re-engaged in reading again,
Yep.
showing them that reading is fun, that writing can be fun, and the things that you can create with being a writer. So I thank you as well, bro. So I want to thank y'all for tuning in. This is the Brand New Development Series. Y'all know what we do every third Monday. We're here trying to bring you all some great, inspiring individuals that are doing some impactful things. And as y'all know, the Black Professional Men, their mission, our purpose is to secure the future of the African-American male. That's what we do. That's what we're trying to do. That's part of what we're doing with the Black Literary Expo. So we hope you'll come out, bring the whole family. You can meet some phenomenal small business owners, as well as some phenomenal authors and writers, and we will continue to do that. We'll continue to beat that drum so that everyone can understand and see all that we are and can be all that we are purposed to be. So we want to thank y'all for tuning in again. Theo, thank you, man. Y'all know how I end 2019. We're about chasing the impact. As I said, we're trying to make you better by the end of this year than you were at the beginning of the year. So we'll talk to y'all next month. We'll see y'all same time, same place, and we'll have an even more of an impact. So we'll talk to y'all soon. Appreciate you.
Have a good one.
All right. Thanks.